all of a sudden, I don't know when exactly the time was, you must have found that the ketchup was over. The mustard was, no. The catching up was over. And suddenly you were leading the pack. I mean, you obviously are aware of the fact that you're very influential in the Larry Carlton sound and the whole thing. What kind of a revelation is that? You know, because obviously you practiced hours. You probably still do practice hours at a time. Maybe I'm wrong.
You're wrong.
But
it all comes totally natural. He was born like that. You know?
Well, the point comes, I mean, I'm a musician too, and I know the feeling. I'm not exactly ahead of the pack yet, but I know the feeling of aspiring, a feeling, you know, you've attained a certain kind of a level, but now really you're sort of, you know, you're a pioneer, you're leading. What's the revelation like? Or when did that occur to you?
I think it occurs over in such a gradual manner that it's not as big a revelation as we might believe. Obviously there are stages when you become aware that, well, gee, I'm on 8 of the top 10 records this year, and I'm starting to hear other guitar players emulate the sound that I used on the records last year. Those things are, you know, that input you digest and say, fine, move on, they're always a year behind, no problem, right? So, but the revelation as far as, gee, I've done this, it's not like that. It comes so slowly, and it's personal goals that I've always reached for, not last year's goals and not what the trades say. It's, am I satisfied with my growth? If I'm not, well, who's going to do something about it? I am.
Well, who are the players who you most admire, or who you you know, you consider your peers nowadays?
Definitely the gentleman we were talking about earlier, Jeff Porcaro on drums, the drummer with Toto. Used to be one of my favorite musicians, not drummer, musicians in the world. This guy makes music. He makes music when he sits down at the drums. And Steve Gadd is the same way, as a drummer. Bass players, there's Abraham Laboriel in Los Angeles, who, again, when he plays, he wants to make music. He's not there for the dollars. He's there to express himself. And you get that on your record, and your record sounds better.
Oh, for sure.
So, keyboard-wise, David Foster's a wonderful musician on the keyboard. So is Greg Matheson, Terry Trotter. From the East Coast, Richard T. These are names that we see, but these gentlemen have a lot to offer, and that would be an all-star band to me to get to play with those people. And I've been able to make 2 or 3 albums with those kind of players.
Yeah. Well, I noticed that you definitely, you work with a clique of studio musicians, and we see their names and yours in groups, and have for the last few years. Is there any urge inside of there to find some new blood, and knowing that might draw a new sound out of you or something like that?
That has happened.
It's happened.
It has happened.
I think we're psychic. I really do.
On the Sleepwalk album.
This is a scoop, folks.
There's the keyboard player that played the majority of the Fender Rhodes parts is Terry Trotter. I'm 34 years old. Terry Trotter's 41 years old. I knew Terry in 1969. We used to play at Disneyland together. He's the musical director for Steve and Edie Gourmet. So here's Terry, not on all the records that you pick up all the time, but the way he voices chords made me play. Had a lot to do with the way I sound on the Sleepwalk LP. So it's not a conscious effort looking for someone to give that to you. It's just when you run across it, you say, gee, I'd like to try that. I'd like to make music with that person. And having Terry to make music with has changed the way I play.
How about younger musicians?
Haven't heard any, and it's not because they're not out there. It's because I'm not out there. I'm not out on the street.
Would you like to do that eventually, to put together, let's say, a band of younger players?
My initial reaction is that it wouldn't be cohesive, in that all the years I've been playing and the caliber of musicians that I'm used to playing with, younger players, what they would have to offer might be very special, but I might be missing just the basics that I'm used to playing with, like good time, great tuning, and experience that, you know, you can only get experience by getting experience.
And it's also quicker,
That's
too.
right. Again, I'm going to bring this up. When you have Jeff Porcaro, Terry Trotter, and Abraham Laboriel on a session, as soon as they know the chart, you've got your take. I just finished
With feel too. Not
with
just,
feel. That's the point. So I'm used to that. I just spent a week in New York with Donald Fagen doing his solo album, as opposed to a Steely Dan album. Donald will now
Yeah.
do a solo record. He and I had the same discussion about musicians. He's cutting all of his tracks. He's not doing tracks any longer. He's using a Roger Lynn drum machine, overdubbing keyboard, overdubbing bass. He's going to bring Jeff Porcaro in and do his drums last, because Jeff plays his heart out the first 2 times through. There's no reason to miss that while you're still working on finding the ideal bass part or the
Yeah.
best piano part. So Jeff will be there last because he's that good. 2 takes and you can put up the next roll of tape. Sounds like I'm endorsing Jeff Porcaro, doesn't it?
As I mentioned,
kind of
I went
drums
to
does
junior
Jeff
high
play?
with Jeff.
We'll try to get a few bucks out of it.
He's wonderful.
Yeah. Well, having a solo act, as it were, a career solo, has its rewards and drawbacks. Now, where you used to drive to the studio, you know, the drawbacks of going to the studio were that it wasn't your music and it turned into work.
Right.
But where you used to drive to the studio, now you're on planes and all over the place. You see, you've got the solo, but now you really have to travel. Do you have anything to add to that, to expound upon that? It's obviously worth the trouble, I would think.
Is it a burden, is what he's trying to say? I mean, do you find that there's,
Yes.
you know, to go back and forth as opposed
Right.
to staying in your little studio,
Right.
they send you tapes and you just play and you can talk to your kids and, you know,
Right. Well,
move around then.
again, I have a unique situation. I don't try to get hit records, as we said, so I don't have to go out and tour to support a hit record.
And you like that.
Well, I have the option then. If I want to put together a 3-month tour in the States, that's always possible when I release an album. It just really depends on if I feel like playing. If I'm in the mood to go play my guitar every day live, then it's worth it. But if I would rather be in the studio or spending time with my family or composing